It's so interesting to me because there is this struggle, almost this angst among LSU fans right now, because you sense and feel this confidence in people like me who talk to you that Lane Kiffin is coming to LSU. But then you almost don't want to believe it because it's like an emotional hedge, right? When you're watching your team play, every fan can relate to this. You're watching your team play and you emotionally hedge. You think you should win the game, you want to win the game, but you go, you know what, we're not any good. We can't run the ball, we're not any good, we're going to lose. And you desperately want to win, but it's your emotional hedge so you don't get yourself too excited and lose and be let down. I think that's where every LSU fan is right now with the Kiffin stuff. You want it to happen. You think it's going to happen. It probably should happen. But you're like, why are the Florida people so confident? What do they know? Nothing. Anyway. For whatever it's worth, oddsmakers continue to update such things. We have this up at louisianasports.net. As this was published on Tuesday, Lane Kiffin, the updated odds, he is now minus 200 to be the next LSU head coach. He's plus 175 to be the Florida coach, and he is 6-1. That's plus 600 to be the Ole Miss head coach. 7-1 to be anywhere else in college, and 18-1 to be in the NFL. So Lane Kiffin, pretty heavy favorite now to be the LSU coach, according to the odds makers. Those are not my odds. I'm not making up fake odds and putting them on the internet. Those are sportsbook odds makers who are doing that. And I'll share with you a few tidbits that I got today. I have maintained as this has gone along that I think based on information that I have gotten throughout this process, that I think the Florida media that continue to insist that Lane Kiffin's headed to Florida, I think they're about 10 to 14 days behind the news cycle. I think there was absolutely a point in this process where I would have told you Lane Kiffin was going to be the Florida coach. I believe Lane Kiffin thought he would be the Florida coach. And as I've told you, that two things happened. Number one, LSU fired Brian Kelly and got earnestly in the mix for Lane Kiffin. They identified him as their number one target, and they've gone full bore. And then the other is Ole Miss has continued to win, which has complicated this because if they were 8-3, I think this would be a no-brainer. They played the Egg Bowl, and he may already be gone. And he could very easily say, I gave it my all. I won a lot there, but we have a lower ceiling, and I want to go somewhere where I can win a championship, and I think most people would understand that. But being that he's on the verge of a playoff, it's complicated the whole thing. That's been my point all along. And I do believe that late last week, in particular Thursday, Friday, it became really crystallized that Kiffin had decided LSU over Florida. There's a lot of things that still need to transpire, and I want to throw out that caveat. I'm going to continue to do it. Just like I told you, if you rewind the clock 2-3 weeks, I'd have told you Lane Kiffin was going to Florida. And that has since changed now. As I believe LSU clearly is in the lead for Lane Kiffin's services, and I think ultimately Lane Kiffin is going to be the LSU coach. But these things continue to evolve and change, and nothing is done until there is an enforceable document, right? A binding agreement, which is not signed right now. So until that is, nothing's done. But last Friday there was the meeting with Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter and Chancellor Boyce, and that followed the exact timeline that we talked about here for a week. That they had that meeting, and Lane Kiffin affirmed himself to Ole Miss. They would have announced an extension. That didn't happen. If it didn't happen, Lane Kiffin was leaving. He'd coach the Egg Bowl, and then they'd make an announcement after. And that's what we're expecting now, is that the announcement will come, as Keith Carter said in his statement on Saturday. I still believe that announcement on Saturday will come, and it'll be that Lane Kiffin's leaving Ole Miss, and they'll promote Joe Judge to the interim head coach. I believe that's the plan as of right now. But remember also what happened on Friday. In addition to that statement after the meeting among Kiffin, Boyce, and Carter. Well, the LSU Board of Supervisors had that meeting in executive session, so behind closed doors, so as it wouldn't be in public. The stated agenda was Brian Kelly's buyout, but I don't think it would come as any surprise to anyone to learn that they discussed what contract they were willing to formally offer Lane Kiffin. We talked about that on Friday. As best information I have, that was discussed, and I don't think it's any surprise that that evening that contract was leaked to Ross Dellinger, who reported it. Maybe a surprise to some at LSU who did not want it leaked, but it was. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It shows your commitment and how all in you are here. And today I got more information from both Ole Miss and Florida people that just reinforce that belief that Florida, I believe, is moving with the understanding that Lane Kiffin is likely going to LSU, and Florida has begun interviewing other candidates for their head coaching job, and that Ole Miss is beginning its soft search. Now, there's a real challenge here with the timing that I think is the one thing people say, well, what could cause it to derail? I don't think Lane Kiffin has a change of heart. I don't think it's like they win this Egg Bowl game and golly gee, I just want to stay at Ole Miss. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Lane Kiffin, as we've talked about, wants to coach his team. He said it. Do you have that from yesterday, Kiffin, yesterday? Do you have that pulled up, Muse? It was the one where he said, like, do you expect to coach the team the rest of the way? Do you have finishing out the season? Yeah, hit that one.
If that plays out and you guys are able to go on a run, how important is it to you to finish out the season with this team?
Very important. I've never thought of anything different than that.
Okay, so in a press conference where he just very politely declined to answer every question, noting that it's a fair question. He answered that one. Lane Kiffin wants to coach the team. As I've told you now for 2 weeks, they're not going to let him coach in the college football playoff if he's working for another school. But the problem that Ole Miss is running into right now is they need to begin a search in earnest, but they can't formally offer their job to anybody while they still have a coach. So let's say hypothetically they want to hire John Summerall down at Tulane. Well, apparently so does Auburn, and I don't have any inside information, and I hear things, but I don't have any inside information into Auburn. But we know that Florida has had overtures towards Summerall as well. That was reported last week. So Summerall's got options. Ole Miss needs to move, but they can't while Lane Kiffin is still their coach. So they're going to play the Egg Bowl, and then Saturday the announcement will come, presumably. But Lane Kiffin wants to keep coaching his team, and Ole Miss needs him to leave so they can hire a new coach and move on. Well, if they fire him, they'll owe him $36 million. They're not going to fire him. They need him just to leave for his new job. Well, he don't want to leave yet. He wants to leave, but at the end of the season because he wants to coach his team. So how does this happen? Do they suspend him? Do they demote him? Do they put him on leave? I don't know. But that's the complicating factor herein. And so then if you look at, say, Ole Miss, and they want to hire, let's say Lane Kiffin's leaving, they want to hire John Summerall. I'll use that as a hypothetical, as I've been told that he would be at the top of their list. Okay, well, if you're delayed and now you can't hire John Summerall or you pick somewhere else, where do you move on to? I mean, the North Texas coach, Eric Morris, a lot of word there is that Oklahoma State is pretty far down the road with Eric Morris at this point. So that becomes the point. The later you wait, the harder it is because you're thinning out the candidate pool, which is why I believe Florida has an understanding today that Lane Kiffin's likely headed to LSU, so they're starting to in earnest begin their search and interviewing other candidates. And Ole Miss needs to begin their search as it looks more and more likely like Lane Kiffin will not be. I mean, Ole Miss, I think, has pushed the eject button. They have emotionally gotten to a point where they recognize Lane Kiffin's not going to be their coach. All the while, LSU is singular. They're singularly focused on Lane Kiffin. I don't think LSU has what they believe to be a really good number 2 option. I think for this committee, that was Eli Drinkwitz. I think the public reaction to that has been so visceral and negative, that it's moved LSU's brass off of that position with Eli Drinkwitz. They feel like at this point they don't have a no-doubt, slam-dunk, clear-cut number 2, so they are singularly and wholly focused on making sure Lane Kiffin is their next head coach. And they're going to wait for him. You don't take my word for it. Verge Osbury said that on this show 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago today, Verge Osbury was on this show and said this. So in theory, like if there were a coach, again, this is hypothetical, if there were a coach who made the playoffs and was coaching beyond January 1st, that wouldn't necessarily eliminate them from consideration?
No, it would not.
I mean, you don't have to listen to me say it. LSU's athletic directors leading the search told you they're going to wait. And they're waiting for Lane Kiffin. He's their guy. And barring something dramatically unforeseen between now and Saturday, I think they're going to get him. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.